Democratic-controlled House. The administration warns the resolution undermines the fight against extremism.
Fox's Jared Halpern on Capitol Hill. And U.S. health regulators move forward with a plan to restrict sales of e-cigarettes to teenagers and kids. The FDA guidelines call on banning sales in convenience stores and online to people under 18. This is Fox News.
Lent-friendly burgers at Chili's. Indulge in a selection of our famous burgers with a black bean patty. Black bean patties combine beans with onions, parsley, bell peppers, and cilantro. Served with dill pickles and fries. More Lenten entrees include the spicy shrimp tacos, Cajun pasta with shrimp, or grilled ancho salmon. Best of all, each entree is just $15 and comes with a refreshing Coca-Cola, iced tea, or Heineken on draft. Our fresh house salad with an entree for just $15. Chili's 3 for Me Lent menu. Available for a limited time. Chili's. More life happens here.
In 1972, Jesus S. Leon Guerrero pictured a brighter future for our island and its people. With the trust and support of the community, he founded Bank of Guam. In celebration of our 47th anniversary, we're offering a Founders Day loan for up to $50,000, as low as 4.70 annual percentage rate, up to 72 months. Visit any branch or bankofguam.com for more information. Subject to bank's lending criteria, terms and conditions apply. Offer valid until March 29, 2019. Bank of Guam, member FDIC.
A blizzard pounding Colorado with winds gusting up to 80 miles an hour.
Stay home, stay warm, stay safe. Give it till probably at least tomorrow morning and revisit it then.
Castle Rock police officer Chad Stoneking. It's the kind of severe storm meteorologists call a bomb cyclone. Colorado's governor declared a state of emergency and activated the National Guard. Denver's airport canceling more than 1,300 flights. In eastern Wyoming, that is, truck stops have turned into refuges for drivers. The blizzard shutting down Interstates 80 and 25. Arkansas moves a step closer to enacting the strictest abortion law in the nation.
Lawmakers approved a bill banning abortions after 18 weeks of pregnancy, with exceptions for rape and incest. Republican Governor Asa Hutchinson supports the legislation and believes it would survive a court challenge. Pro-choice groups saying the measure is an unconstitutional attempt to undermine Roe v. Wade. Arkansas already bans the procedure after 20 weeks. Other states tried enacting tighter time frames for getting abortions, but courts blocked those efforts. Other abortion measures advancing in Arkansas include prohibiting doctors from performing abortions solely because of a Down syndrome diagnosis. Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
A Good Samaritan returns a prized basketball jersey to its rightful owner continents away.
2 years ago, Kobe Bryant's jersey was stolen out of a trophy case at his alma mater, Lower Merion High School in Pennsylvania. The autographed number 33 jersey has now turned up in China. Lou Zay, a self-professed Kobe superfan, noticed a jersey that he had purchased for $2,000 looked very similar to the one that was plucked from Bryant's high school. Turns out it was the very same. Zay decided to send the jersey back to the Lower Merion High School free of charge because he felt it was the right thing to do.
Fox's Matt Napolitano. And the EU officials are warning Britain there's only 2 ways to leave the EU, with or without a deal. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Help celebrate Earth Month with 93.3 The Point and the return of the Upcycle Mascot Showdown. Stay tuned for details on the upcoming live event and how you can support your favorite school. The Upcycle Mascot Showdown, brought to you by Lolita Kamet from Remax Diamond Realty, the Agana Shopping Center, Sylvan Learning Center, PBS Guam, and 93.3 The Point.
Looking for a great deal on a new Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram? Then get to Cars Plus in Mighty now for our spring sales event, like a new Jeep Compass Sport, $166 per paycheck, or a new Chrysler Pacifica LX, $220 per paycheck, or save $8,500 on a new Ram 1500. How about a new Jeep Wrangler Sport, only $274 per paycheck? Low 1.99% financing is available on approved credit. Save thousands during our spring sales event going on now at Cars Plus in Mighty. Cars Plus, driven by you.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. At least not so long as I have anything to say about it. And it looked like for a little while there, for the last 24 hours, I might not have anything to say about it because Facebook was down all over the world. Now, you could accuse me of being a conspiracy theorist and suggest that I ought to be wearing a tinfoil hat on the program here, but when I heard that Facebook was down, I figured it's just the left trying to keep my international radio listening audience from following Facebook, the program on Facebook Live. But I'm glad to see that we're back on Facebook Live. So the usual conventions apply here. You could call Tall Tales at 888-8255, 888-TALK. You could post your pithy, I don't lisp, you could post your pithy comments on Facebook, and I will more than likely recognize them and give vent to your comments over the air and perhaps get my 2 cents worth in on your comment. So that's how we do things here on Tall Tales. I don't have information on the Second Amendment today. Nothing caught my eye as being Tall Tales worthy. So we'll proceed from the reading of the Second Amendment, which is the way we always start Tall Tales. We'll proceed from there straight to Zemi Ikotny. And we'll ask the real Joe Cruz once again to inform our international radio listening audience, what does that mean, Zemi Ikotny, real Joe Cruz?
Well, it's a play on words we use here in Tall Tale. It's actually translated press the meat. But, you know, we like to play with words around here. It's actually meet the press.
Okay, so it's a takeoff on the NBC program called Meet the Press, correct, real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir, where you take the two popular newspaper editorials and you dissect and perform an autopsy on them.
Yeah, and autopsy sometimes is quite appropriate because sometimes they're pretty dead reading, aren't they? Yeah, that's how we do it. Okay, so I'm going to start out today's Zemi Ikotny with the Pacific Daily News, and the headline of the editorial is, Our View, More Promises from Governor, Still No Plans to Fund Them. And I kind of addressed that in the card here about a week ago when an item on the card was titled, Governor, as you were, Lou Leon Guerrero versus Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. And Lou Leon Guerrero, the candidate, made some pretty high-blown promises as to all the wonderful things she was going to do when she became our governor. And by the way, real Joe Cruz, did you know that she is the first female governor of Guam?
I do, sir.
Yeah. How did you find that out?
I think they say it every day, sir.
Somebody is saying it over and over again every day, right? Yeah.
They don't want anybody to forget, sir.
Yeah. So that kind of reminds me, you know, we've talked about the so-called glass ceiling, and the meaning of that term, glass ceiling, is that you look up and you could see all the way to the heavens because the ceiling is made out of glass. It's transparent. But for some people, when you get up to that ceiling, you can't go any higher, no matter how meritorious you are or how good you are at what you do. And for a long, long time, the females of the human species had been saying, well, you know, there's a glass ceiling. A woman can only rise so far before she runs into the glass ceiling. Hillary Clinton made something of the glass ceiling because she had her inaugural, her election night meeting where she was going to celebrate her brilliant victory in a building that actually had a glass ceiling. Didn't work out so well for her, though, did it? But at least here on Guam, I don't think we need to talk about a glass ceiling, because if there ever were one, and I'm not so sure there ever was, it has been broken. We have a female governor. How many members of our legislature are females, Joe Cruz?
10, sir?
10 of them, yeah. We've heard that over and over ad nauseum also, haven't we?
That's why I have the number in my head, ready and ready and able.
There you go. The Chief Justice of our Supreme Court is a female. We just saw the departure of a female Attorney General. So I don't know that it's really very probative to talk in terms of a glass ceiling here on our island. I'm not going to do it, and I probably will have harsh words for anyone who comes up with that line. But anyhow, Lou Leon Guerrero and Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio concur with their Transition Committee recommendation to abolish and merge some boards and commissions, while at the same time reactivating others, such as the Guam Election Commission. I guess nobody told Kelly Marsh Bulanaatnya about that, because we'll get to that again on the card. She's creating a new commission. The governor continues to make promises without announcing plans for how or where her administration will secure the funding to make those promises a reality. On Monday, Governor Lou Leon Guerrero and Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio took a tour of the Department of Youth Affairs facilities in Manila. Leon Guerrero said more can be done to help the island's at-risk youths, and along with Tenorio, vowed to support continued implementation of reforms. That's a good thing. Our community should do more to help and guide our at-risk youth. We all should support reforms to the system that benefits troubled youth and gives them chances to turn their lives around. The governor and lieutenant governor also promised upgrades to the aging DYA facilities, which are more than 40 years old. Yeah, that's more than 40 years old. That's really, really old, isn't it, real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Would you believe that there are actually people that are more than 40 years old?
Really?
Yeah, that's really old, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. According to AdLoop, they're waiting for the Interior Department to approve a specific funding request for DYA improvements. Okay, Interior Department. DYA Director Melanie Brennan made it clear the upgrades are needed. She said the cells at DYA Youth Correctional Facilities still use padlocks and lack toilet facilities. When incarcerated youths need to use the bathroom or take a shower, they must be escorted, which means youth affairs must maintain a high staff ratio. The individual padlocks also could put clients in danger. If a fire should break out in the facility or some other dangerous emergency, staff would have to go cell by cell to open padlocks and escort children to safety. Leon Guerrero has said she wants innovative and transformational changes. That's a quote within the government of Guam. She promised to increase staffing at public safety agencies, notably at the Guam Police Department, repay $3.8 million inappropriately taken from the 911 fund, follow the Guam law requiring 24.6% of income taxes go to a dedicated account to pay tax refunds, and to ensure Department of Corrections inmates and detainees who are infected with hepatitis C get properly treated. And yet, thus far, no one from the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration has offered a plan to fulfill any of these promises. No one has mentioned or even hinted at where the money will come from. The promises keep coming, but nothing else. We've commented on that same phenomenon here on Tall Tales, and thus the item on the card, Lou Leon Guerrero versus Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. Okay, then we have the Post editorial. Elected officials need to draw the line on public behavior. No one is questioning people's constitutional rights to freely express their thoughts, But there also needs to be a clear line drawn somewhere about behaving in a civil manner. When a man who's been charged in court for marijuana and brought what he describes as packets of weed, then nonchalantly asked if there are any buyers around in the legislative hearing room during a hearing, senators let that behavior slide. And I've commented on that also. Right here on the card, it was somebody versus Clint. I can't remember who. Probably should have been Howard Hemsing, because Howard Hemsing really put the whole process to a test. He demonstrated what appeared to everyone in the hall and everyone watching on television, what appeared to be an illegal act. But Clint let it go, and he explained in a news article, well, it wasn't disruptive. So I didn't think it was necessary to take any action. So I guess the point then is that if you wanted to sell some other drug, cocaine or crystal methamphetamine or whatever, if you presented yourself at the legislature and hawked your wares right there during the public hearing, so long as you were careful not to disrupt, you'd be okay. And what a marketing opportunity, all that free TV time. I don't know what Howard does other than present himself to the legislature with what appears to be marijuana, but it's a great marketing opportunity for anyone who would want to sell marijuana. Just go to the next public hearing and say, walk around and say, hey, adai nai sa gua songe, te guagua ni songe nai, agang papaju gi 888-888-88. And what a great marketing opportunity. Going out to everybody who's watching on TV, everybody in the session hall. No doubt the papers would pick up on it. The old saying, there's no such thing as bad press, or as Roger Stone said, it's better to be infamous than never famous at all. So anyhow, moving on, when a pair of middle fingers were pointed in the legislative hearing room toward a group of people there to testify or show support for board nominees, some defended that action as an expression of one's right to free speech or expression. On the other hand, an attorney has called it out as a breach of peace, civility, and decorum. There have been other public displays of questionable behavior in front of our elected officials that one can argue weren't criminal, but might be offensive or shocking to some. These episodes and others like them raise the question, should our elected officials only take a stand solely based on what's against the law? That wouldn't have helped Howard, would it? Should they also help set the tone for what we expect of our younger generation and how they behave in public, particularly in the place where our local laws are made or where legislation is signed into law? No one is questioning people's constitutional right to freely express their thoughts, but there also needs to be a clear line drawn somewhere about behaving in a civil manner. It's the type of civility we expect at home for the younger children among our extended families. We'd like our younger family members to show respeto, speak kindly, and be well-mannered. Holding public office isn't just about making rules and laws and imposing them. It's also about showing clear examples of what we'd like our community to be. Elected officials, you ran on promises for a better community. You've invoked anaphemalic, the Chamorro concept of keeping harmony or order. Don't be among the first to show that our votes for you were a mistake and that the words you once invoked about fostering a community spirit of respect and harmony during your campaigns were just empty. Some interesting points. So the chairman of a committee at a public hearing basically is in charge of the hall. He has the sergeant at arms, who is sort of like the legislature's cop. To help him keep order. And it would seem to not be overly burdensome that people who are in the session hall behave themselves. Still.
I've asked them to keep it down out there.
Yeah. Maybe we have the same problem right here in the studio. Okay, so an interesting point. Who do we hold responsible for maintaining decorum at the legislature during public hearings? And I would suggest that it is the chairman of the committee. And I was a little critical of Clint Rigel when he had Paul Zerzan escorted from the hearing room because Paul Zerzan had the temerity to argue with Clint about the bill that was being heard, which also was Clint's bill. But when Howard Hemsing came in and waved his purported bags of marijuana around, well, that was okay because it wasn't disruptive. So it would seem to me that a standard has to be set. Some ROIs, rules of engagement, have to be laid down with the sergeant at arms. And we need to work on decorum at public hearings. Something that I notice, and I suppose it's just the price that a person pays for getting old, but I've seen people sit down at the table at public hearings to give testimony and not remove their covers. Now, I know it's nowadays, you know, it's almost fashionable to wear a hat wherever you go. You go to a restaurant to eat dinner, well, you wear your hat, of course. You would never take your hat off just because you're indoors. You know, some of the older folks out there, international radio listening audience, would remember when there was a time when you didn't wear, a gentleman didn't wear his hat indoors. Perhaps a holdover from our naval tradition. Sailors and Marines are always uncovered indoors unless they're bearing arms. But I see people testify at legislative hearings wearing their hats. So that's, I suppose, a small thing, and I suppose that there were those who would say, well, aren't there more important things to think about than that? And I suppose there are, but don't all of these things kind of come together? Is it okay to go to a public hearing and show your displeasure with someone who is a nominee for a public office by giving him the finger? Is that okay? Is it okay to come to the legislature and purportedly sell narcotics on the floor of the legislature? I think an easily understood standard could be recommended. So both editorials today, I think, got at things that need to be gotten at. The governor's, our new governor's ability to promise all kinds of things and apparently not deliver on any of them, and not let us in on the secret as to where she's going to get the money to pay for any of these things. That's pretty good. That's the kind of thing that we want editorials to do, to bore in and ask these kinds of questions. And the Post comes out and says, you know, if we stop and think about it, people who are senators ought to pass laws and do these other things, but they ought to set a good example for young folks. and they ought to see that what they do sets a good example for young folks. So there should be some decorum during public hearings. I think this is an issue, once again, that needs to be raised, and I compliment the Post for doing it. So today, I suppose, in the spirit of judicial fairness, I could call this a scoreless tie, but I'm more inclined to award the coveted gold star to both newspapers. Yeah. So we've got two winners today. Yeah. That's kind of like that commercial that airs on The Point from time to time. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Do you know the answer to that, Real Joe Cruz?
Both, sir.
Yeah, okay. So that's which editorial today, which editorial was the better, Real Joe Cruz? Both. Okay, so much for Demi Cotney. Moving on to the card, I've got some stuff that we've been talking about before that we haven't finished. I've got some stuff here that I've been talking about before that we haven't finished. I'm going to start out again with William Singer versus UOG. I've got Kelly Bulanaatnya versus Lulian Guerrero, which I didn't finish yesterday and which I said I'd start with today, so I should start with that, I guess. And we still got Rory versus Mike Phillips, or Rory versus our justice system, with a sideshow called Lulian Guerrero versus Josh. And this all arises from Lou and Josh's big-time visit to the commercial port. Exciting visit to the commercial port. And then I've got a new item here, the AFL-CIO versus AOG. So stay tuned, and I will decipher all of those initials for you. So let's start out here with Kelly Bulanaatnya versus Lulian Guerrero. And I mentioned yesterday that Kelly Marsh, or Titano Marsh, she has introduced a bill, Bill 59, and on Bill 59, her name is shown as Kelly Marsh, parenthesis, Titano. And it's an act to establish the Historiata. Well, if you say Historiata, you don't need to put the word the in front of it, because Gifino Chamorro, the sound E, means the, right? So Zangen Ileku I Matahu, I'm talking about the face, right? I Kanaihu, it's the hand. So the title of the bill is an act to establish the Historiata. Doesn't make sense. Inet non. Okay, we got a break time coming up here already. I'll come back to. I should be able to finish reading the title of this bill before our big halftime show at 5 o'clock. It may be close, so you'll want to watch that one.
Okay, I think it's coming up soon.
Yeah, we're in Route 1 and near the airport intersection, right?
There, see it? What's the keyword? Look for the keyword.
Check out the Vantage Digital Billboard and reap the rewards. Catch the keyword on the screen and get a free Americano or tea with menu purchase when you mention the keyword at your next visit to the Hive. Conditions may apply.
Did you see it?
You got it. I got it. You just focus on driving.
Take advantage today and take a look at Vantage Advertising's digital billboard located on Route 1 at the airport intersection.
The GCC Votech Class of 79 is back. Join them on April 27th at the Onward Beach Hotel for a night of dinner, dancing, skits, and reminiscing. It's been 40 years since graduation, so take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime chance to relive the memories. There's also a memorial mass on Friday, the 26th at the Santa Teresita Church. Be there at 5:30 for candle placement in honor of classmates who've gone before. Tickets for the reunion on the 27th are on sale for $40 a person. For details, find Connie Kittigwas and Nicholas at 488-6108 or Kathy Diaz, 777-3243. Viva 79ers!
Now, more Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie. Spitting truth like watermelon seeds at a summer picnic. Call now, 888-TALK, 888-8255.
So the title of Kelly Marsh, parenthesis Titano's bill is an act to establish the historiata in etnon estudion umali'i jan umafana tautau hijung jan tautau tanu commission to share the Chamorro perspective during the 500th year since Manautau Mona first discovered Westerners in their waters. So I went through it somewhat yesterday, and you've got 9 people on the committee, people like representative appointed by the governor, a representative from GVB, Snow White, 2 of the dwarfs, etc. And the commission members serve a term of 3 years, and the duties and purposes. And the duties and purposes are to ensure that indigenous narratives and critiques are incorporated into the planning and development of events and materials. Continually study and direct research necessary to organize public programs, develop marketing and educational materials, coordinate other events and logistics around the 5th centennial of the circumnavigation. Here we go again. The circumnavigation around the Earth. If you say circumnavigation of the Earth, that means navigation around the Earth. Consult and collaborate with the Office of the Governor, the Legislature, the Department of Chamorro Affairs, the University, the Commission Ifino Chamorro, the Department of Education, the Mayor's Council of Guam, historical and cultural institutions and organizations, and I think yesterday when I read it, I on my own initiative inserted Chodi in there. Chodi and others in Guam and the region who may participate, contribute, and collaborate in programs and projects. Work with the government of Spain's agencies and museums to ensure Guam's participation and sharing of local displays and materials are presented in other parts of the world to expand knowledge about the encounter and the Chamorro people. Well, as I was about to say yesterday at the end of the program, I think this item, this is, by the way, this bill is not codified. It's an uncodified bill. You won't find it anywhere in the government code, in the Guam Code annotated, because it isn't codified. So we've got a section 4 in the bill, and 4 subsection D, work with the government of Spain's agencies and museums. So I think I've unearthed the purpose of this particular commission, and that would be to see how many people we could send to Spain on the government's nickel to see how enjoyable it would be for them to do that on the government's nickel. Now, I've been to Spain a couple times. It's really a nice place to visit. I wouldn't begrudge anyone a visit to Spain. I just would prefer, though, that if anyone goes, he pays for the trip himself and not come up with some sort of a convoluted commission that has a name longer than Swedish royalty in order to accomplish that mission. The next item, ensure that the people of Guam are involved in scholarly activities and various related events and displays of indigenous culture depicted within the context of the historical encounter to foster thoughtful examination and a rich dialogue about these historical events. Develop and submit a biannual report on the plan and schedule for coordination and execution of programs and projects to the speaker. Welcome input from the public and promote participation in all events by the people of Guam. Well, here's a little public input. Kelly Marsh, parenthesis, maybe I ought to call her just Kelly Marsh P. Kelly Marsh P. The P stands for parenthesis. P. Titano. I think this is a dumb idea. I think it's a dumb idea at a time when the governor is saying we've got too many boards and commissions. We need to streamline our government. It's no secret that we don't have an awful lot of money, but we do have an abundance of problems. To set up a commission like this, which appears to me to be set up primarily to pay for people to go to take nice junkets to Spain, is not a good idea. And if you're going to do it, hey, it's already 2019. We're talking about the 500th anniversary of Magellan's passing through here on March 6th, 1519. So if this were important, wouldn't this have been the kind of thing that should have started maybe in 2017? Aren't we already behind the power curve on this? Going on to Section 5, the Commission is hereby authorized to use, and the University and Department of Chamorro Affairs are directed to make available personnel and logistical assistance as the Commission may require in carrying out its functions. In other words, if there's any work to be done, get somebody from the university to do the work. Now, there's a sunset provision. The Commission shall remain in effect until December 31, 2021. And there's the obligatory severability clause. If a severability clause ordinarily doesn't make any sense, it doesn't make sense in spades in this particular bill. Which section of this bill would the author want to see deleted and allow the rest of the bill to survive? The composition of the Commission? The powers of the Commission? Once again, we're dealing with a concept that is not meritorious and a very poorly drafted bill to carry that concept into effect. So Bill 59 is a loser in two different aspects. So I don't usually give grades to bills, but I'm going to give a grade to Bill 59. I do this once. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, F. So when you're one of 15 and sitting in our legislature for an unlimited amount of time, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect real production, and real production geared towards solving the real problems that we have and doing what I would call answering the mail. The legislature, good times and bad, crisis and non-crisis, has to do a budget every year. There are legislative appointments that need to be confirmed. There are just general housekeeping matters that need to be accomplished. And bills like this one, or like the Tello-Taitigui bill that would substitute the judgment of the legislature for the Public Utilities Commission, certainly aren't what I expect to see from a legislature. And my suspicion is that I'm not alone in that regard. Moving from there to I dropped a paper clip. I gotta keep all my Kelly Marsh parenthesis Titano papers in one bundle here, because it seems that they keep coming to the top of the stack. Okay, going on to Singer versus the UOG. This is the scandal involving 50 high-ranking people in the country and their criminal attempts to get their children into prestigious colleges. And I have a workup here from the website Salon, which is politically a little bit to the left of where I'm at, but I read it every day. I like to put a little balance in my writing. I like to see what other people are thinking, if anything. And Salon lays it out by the numbers. And here's how the scam was conducted. Parents were instructed to lie and say their kids had learning disabilities. That's one of the things that was done, and that was done so that a kid would have twice the normal amount of time to take one of the standardized tests that were part of the entrance procedure. So my boy has a learning disability, so therefore he gets twice as much time. Second, cheating on college entrance exams. The court documents allege that there were several ways parents cheated when it came to the actual test taking of the ACT or SATs in order to get their kids better scores. Test administrators were bribed. Stand-ins were paid to take the exams for the students. And by the way, stand-ins paid to take exam for the students. Real Joe Cruz, you really got to be on your guard, because you know what they're looking for these stand-ins to take the exams for the kids. They're looking for really smart people to take these exams and get really good grades for the kids. So I know you can resist temptation, but just be on your guard, okay?
I will, sir.
Yeah, I knew I could count on you. And by the way, as another example of the perspicacity of the real Joe Cruz, we're going to have him do another bit right after the show that we have at 5 o'clock this afternoon. Another opportunity for the real Joe Cruz to demonstrate his superior intellect.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, the third thing that people did, forging handwriting for the essay portion of the exam. If a stand-in planned to take a standardized test for a student, they would have to match their handwriting for the essay portion. According to court filings, Jane Buckingham, the owner of a marketing firm in Los Angeles, paid Singer $50,000 for a stand-in to take the ACT in her son's place. Well, that's almost as much as you make being the producer for Tall Tales, real Joe Cruz.
Almost, sir, almost.
So Jane Buckingham sent an email with a photograph of her son's handwriting with the note, quote, "Good luck with this." Bribery allegations involving university athletic coaches and administrators. According to the court documents, payments to athletic coaches and administrators were designated as university donations and funneled through an organization called the Key. So athletic coaches would essentially recruit the paying parents' kids as athletes. One of the criminals, Laughlin, and her fashion designer husband, Massimo Giannulli, are accused of paying $500,000 to CW1 in order, that's cooperating witness 1, in order to have their daughters admitted to USC as crew recruits. By way of explanation, crew refers to a collegiate sport where there are teams that row canoes, very stylized canoes, and the sport is called crew. So yeah, so Laughlin and Giannulli are accused of paying $500,000 to cooperating witness 1 in order to have their daughters admitted to USC as crew recruits. Neither of them had any prior involvement or experience in the sport. Laughlin and Giannulli's daughter, Olivia Jade, is an Instagram influencer with 1.3 million followers and nearly 2 million subscribers on YouTube. In one particularly relevant video, Jade lamented the stress of balancing college with her social media career, saying, quote, "I don't know how much of school I'm going to attend, but I'm going to go in and talk to my deans and everyone and hope that I can try and balance it all." Jade continued, "But I do want the experience of like game days, partying, and I don't care about school, as you guys all know." So she didn't care about school, but her parents spent $500,000 to get her into school. 5, fabricating athletic achievements. If students were to be recruited for athletics, then they needed to appear to have athletic backgrounds. In one instance, CW1, Cooperating Witness 1, sent an email to a wealthy vineyard owner with his daughter's high school transcripts, falsified SAT scores, and a robust athletic profile which claims she was, quote, a, quote, 3-year varsity letter winner in water polo. Well, I hope Fred Black is listening. As well as Team Envy Most Valuable Player in 2017. Included in the email was a doctored image of the daughter's face edited onto the picture of a real water polo player. In another instance, CW1 manufactured a football background for a student to increase, and here we go, for a student to increase their chances. Yeah, football background. Now we wouldn't know whether that would be a male or female, right? To increase their chances of getting into USC, even though the student's high school did not have a football team. During an exchange with a parent to discuss the student's fake position, CW1 said, quote, "I'm going to make him a kicker," to which the parent responded humorously, according to the affidavit, "He does have very strong legs." In a different instance, a student who did not play soccer was recruited for Yale's women's soccer team. Singer instructed someone to please create a soccer profile ASAP for this girl. Anyhow, fabricating athletic achievements. How did the fake athletes play? In order to explain why these athletic recruits could not play, in one instance, CW1 told a parent that the athletic director at USC, whom he had allegedly bribed, told staffers that the student, quote, had an injury and that it happened over the summer and that she would be out for 6 to 8 months. Students were left in the dark. In one exchange between Singer and one of the wealthy parents whose child she had allegedly bribed to get into USC as a false recruit for the track team, she told CW1 that her son had no idea about it, and that's the way we want to keep it. Parents didn't want to know, didn't want their kids to know what cheaters they were. And then finally, payments were designated. Well, I'm going to take a break, and we'll come back and finish this up before the 5 o'clock hour, I hope. It's an important subject.
Shrimp and guacamole for Lent at Subway. The all-new shrimp and guacamole combines generous portions of whole shrimp and a spread of guacamole served on freshly baked bread, paired with vegetables cut fresh daily in restaurants and sauces that are sure to excite your taste buds. Hurry in, it's only available for a limited time. Other fresh Lenten flavors include the classic tuna or the mouth-watering greatness of our seafood sensation. Don't forget the Veggie Max, a delicious and tasty vegetarian patty. Visit any of our convenient locations today. At Subway, you make it what you want.
Discover a new galaxy. GTA introduces the new Samsung Galaxy S10 in 3 different sizes. The Galaxy S10 comes with cool new features like Power Share that allows you the ability to share your battery power with other devices. Or you can capture a wider world with its new camera featuring an ultra-wide lens for when you need to take pictures of the whole family. And with GTA's handset payment option, you can take home a Galaxy S10 for $0 down. Come into GTA and bring the Galaxy home.
Yeah, along with manufacturing of learning disabilities, fake charity donations rank among the most egregious allegations in the investigation. Up to hundreds of thousands of dollars earmarked for, quote, undeserved kids were funneled through Singer's company, according to the affidavit, and then filters through his organization to universities where students had been accepted. The charitable designations also allowed some to claim the donations on their taxes. Huffman appeared in court today, and her lawyer argued that she should be released without bail. Anyhow, so there's a Yiddish word, chutzpah. Talk about chutzpah. You know, they're engaging in criminal activity. They're bribing people. They're doing all these other things, and then they set it up so they could take a tax deduction for the money that they pay out in bribes. Getting the kids off to a really good start. I've got another really interesting article here on the same thing, and then I'm going to try to tie it back to our own situation. Why would people do this? Why would these people with all kinds of money, extremely rich, famous, powerful people, why would they engage in this variety of cheating? And here's how it goes. Here's I have this article from the Daily Wire, my favorite Ben Shapiro. The question is why. Both these families are wealthy. The children of these families weren't going to lack for opportunity in life. Furthermore, college isn't designed to train people for the real world. Wouldn't admission under false pretenses result in the kids flunking out? Yeah, that's what I thought when I was reading this. You know, these kids who are bribed into school, some of them may not be quiz kids, and wouldn't they flunk out? Wouldn't their lack of merit be revealed by the simple pressure of going to school? And here's what Ben says. The answer is an obvious no. It wouldn't. Colleges aren't about training kids for the real world, or teaching them significant modes of thinking or examining timeless truths. Universities aren't about skill sets either, at least in the humanities. They're about 2 things, credentialism and social connections. In our society, there's an easy way to be perceived as intellectually meritorious. Point to your degree. I guess we ought to start issuing degrees here in Tall Tales, Real Joe Cruz. Those with college degree all too often sneer at those without one, as though lack of a college degree were an indicator of innate ability or future lack of success. That just isn't true. But for generations, the widespread perception has been that the smartest kids go to college, and the relative merit of each college confers a similar level of merit on the students. A student who goes to Yale is smarter than one who goes to junior college. This provides a lifelong advantage. Employers are willing to take more chances on those who earn a Yale degree than those who went to junior college, for example. Then there's the social connection. Social institutions in the United States have been fading over time. The article points out that once upon a time, churches provided social connections, not anymore. Here's the problem. Neither of these priorities actually demands that universities teach anything. Credentialism occurs upon admission so long as you aren't thrown out of school. Social capital begins to accrue with presence, not with performance. Hence, college is watering down curricula and grades in order to make it easier to credential, and to generate less fiction. That's what students and parents demand, not skills, not education, but credentialism and social capital. And then Ben goes on to talk about his own experience. After I was admitted to Harvard Law School, I attended orientation. Our 500-strong class was gathered in Memorial Hall, where the dean, Elena Kagan, now Supreme Court Justice, spoke to us. She informed us that competition was over. We were in. No need to worry about the stuff we'd seen in the paper chase. We were all going to leave with degrees and jobs. Not just that. As graduates of Harvard Law, we were destined to rule the universe. She informed us of how many alumni were in the Senate, how many in Congress, how many on the Supreme Court. The battle was over upon our acceptance to the institution. And Ben says that's why rich and famous people would spend oodles of money just to get their kids into top universities, not because their kids won't have jobs or will go hungry, but because they want their kids credentialed and admitted into the social club. This story then is less about people committing a crime and more about a system that fails the tests of meritocratic education so badly that people can buy their way past the merit and the education. And this is pretty sad, and that's why I call this Singer versus University, because I don't think our University of Guam falls into this category. I think that the University of Guam exists in order to teach kids stuff. And I have as dim a view of American universities, mainland universities, as anybody. Anyone who waltzes out of any of the American universities with a degree that has the word studies at the end hasn't learned anything at all. He or she, or they, have been indoctrinated into the far left neo-Marxist identity politics way of thinking. When you're talking Afro-American studies or ethnic studies or whatever, women's studies, it's all the same thing. People leave college not knowing anything except who they're supposed to hate. And this article, this Ben Shapiro article, also adds another dimension to it. It's not what you learn in college that counts. It's where you went. If you went to a really prestigious college, you can walk out of there and be as dumb as a post, but you're still probably going to do okay because of the networking, the social aspect of it, and the credentialization phenomenon in America today. So let's be thankful that this is not one of the problems that we have to deal with here today, that we have a university that actually teaches kids something, and no one is bribing anybody to get into it. So here comes that big halftime show. After the halftime show, we're going to come back to Rory versus Mike Phillips and others.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The black boxes taken to Paris. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. Ethiopian Airlines says the 2 black boxes from Sunday's doomed Boeing 737 MAX 8 flight are in Paris now, where investigators will examine them for clues to the cause of the crash.
Hopefully they'll very quickly come up with the answer. But until they do, the planes are grounded.
And the U.S. joining dozens of other countries in grounding the Boeing MAX jets.
I think it was the right decision given the rest of the world is doing the same thing, and it's a prudent thing to be doing until we know more about what's going on.
Airline passenger Sharon Barnes at SeaTac Airport in Seattle. The FAA grounding the jets after receiving data that suggest the two recent crashes of the MAX 8 airliners are similar. The troubles keep piling up for Paul Manafort. Two federal judges in separate cases sentenced President Trump's former campaign chairman to a combined 7.5 years in prison. And now
Manafort was indicted again in a totally separate case in Manhattan in connection to a mortgage fraud scheme. And those state-level charges are not pardonable by the president, unlike the federal crimes that he's already been convicted of. Manafort's now facing 16 other felonies in the state of New York, where prosecutors accuse him of a year-long residential mortgage fraud scheme.
Fox's Kristen Fisher. A severe winter storm in the Midwest prompts Colorado's governor to call out the National Guard. Troops rescuing stranded drivers. Colorado Springs clocking wind gusts at 97 miles an hour. And across the area from Montana to South Dakota and Colorado, interstates are impassable, the power is out. And Denver has canceled more than 1,000 flights at its airport. Dow futures down 49 points at this hour after a plus day for the markets yesterday. The Dow climbed 148 points. This is Fox News.
If you have family or friends getting treatment right now at St. Luke's Medical Center in the Philippines, we want to connect with you. Hafaday, I'm Joe Guam. Thanks to our partners, we're bringing Mes Samoru to St. Luke's in Global City. I'll be playing a free show on March 29th from 2 to 4 p.m. in the St. Luke's Piano Lounge for all our Guamanians out there. All family members accompanying the patient are invited to join us, but seats are limited, so please tell your family to go to joeguam.com to register online and reserve your spot. This event is presented by Guam Windward Memorial. Special thanks to our affiliate partners, Stay Well Guam, Take Care Insurance, Guam Hearing Doctors, Lombard Health Eye Clinic, Guam Premier Outlets, and Coast 360. Our contributing partners, Moylan's Net Care and Data Management Resources. Our supporting partners, American Music, Fizz & Co., The Coconut Tree Company, Kadu Restaurant, and our promotional partner, The Point, Sidus Masids, and Biba Mes Samoru.
I'm proud to be a Guamanian, where America's day begins. And I can't forget the women and men who fought for my brown skin.
The alleged boss of the Gambino crime family is gunned down in New York City. Police sources tell the New York Post the shooter targeted Frank Cali outside his Staten Island home last night. He died later at a hospital. Empire actor Jussie Smollett heads to court today in Chicago.
Jussie Smollett's accused of filing a false report to police about being a victim of a racist and homophobic hate crime attack in January that he pinned on white supporters of President Trump. He pled not guilty to one count last month and faces another 16 counts today, one for every alleged lie, just days after a judge signed off on allowing a camera in court.
We welcome cameras in the courtroom so that the public and the media can see the actual evidence and what we believe is actually going to be the lack of evidence.
Smollett's attorney, Tina Glandian, he was sidelined from the Empire TV show and other jobs following his arrest. In Chicago, Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
And another actor caught up in the college admissions cheating scandal is free on bond.
Federal judge here in Los Angeles agreed to release actress Lori Loughlin on a $1 million bond. She and her fashion designer husband, Massimo Giannulli, are charged with paying $500,000 to have their two daughters recruited for the University of Southern California crew team, despite neither girl knowing how to row. And now USC says all applicants connected to this cheating scheme will be denied, and those already in school will be reviewed, meaning Loughlin's 19-year-old daughter, Olivia Jade, a YouTube star, could be kicked out of USC.
Fox's Trace Gallagher. The loyal service dog of the late President George H.W. Bush gets a national honor. The American Kennel Club recognizing Sully with his 2019 Paw of Courage Award for his loyalty, dedication, and distinguished service. The 2-year-old lab was with the president for the last 6 months of his life. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
The stations of Choice Broadcasting are celebrating April 2019 as National Earth Month with the return of our Upcycle Mascot Showdown. We've invited the public elementary schools to set the example and build their school mascots completely out of recyclable material. Stay tuned to our stations to see how you can vote for your favorite school this April. Celebrate Earth Month with our students in the 2019 Upcycle Mascot Showdown. Brought to you by the Agania Shopping Center, Lolita Kamet from Remax Diamond Realty, Sylvan Learning Center, the Micronesia Mall, and the stations of Choice Broadcasting.
Okay, I think it's coming up soon.
Yeah, we're on Route 1 and near the airport intersection, right?
There, see it? What's the keyword? Look for the keyword.
Check out the Vantage Digital Billboard and reap the rewards. Catch the keyword on the screen and get a free Americano or tea with menu purchase when you mention the keyword at your next visit to the Hive. Conditions may apply.
Did you see it? You got it.
I got it. You just focus on driving.
Take advantage today and take a look at Vantage Advertising's digital billboard located on Route 1 at the airport intersection.
Maybe we should organize the tall teams drill team to march in those big halftime parades that we have every day, Real Joe Cruz.
I agree, sir.
Yeah, we'll work on that. I've got a little exercise here to show the brilliance of the Real Joe Cruz that I was going to do right after the break, but I've got Jimmy on the line, and Jimmy has a prepaid phone, and he doesn't want to waste a lot of time sitting here listening to me jabber. So go ahead, Jimmy, you're on.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yesterday, I said I was, what do they call that? What do you call it?
Say again, Jimmy?
Blind follower?
You were a blind follower yesterday?
No. The word starts with P.
The word starts with P?
Person of cultish.
Oh, the cult of personality of the Real Joe Cruz?
Yeah, there.
Yeah.
Okay, I go with you there.
You want to contribute to that, no doubt, huh, Jimmy?
When that Joe Cruz tries to offer me Kool-Aid, I'm not going to drink.
Good for you. If he's tricky, that Real Joe Cruz, trying to get you to drink some intellectual Kool-Aid, huh?
Personality here. No nepotism. No nepotism here. Just walk on by. But anyway, we're talking about Spain. Or you were speaking about Spain.
Yes, sir. I was.
So, if you go back, please forgive me if I go back in history to Magellan.
All right.
Or Portugal, or the Iberian Peninsula. Okay, everywhere the Spanish colonized, corrupt. Okay, start when Magellan died, the Philippines totally corrupt. Anywhere in Central America, totally corrupt. I don't even know about Tenerife, but it's probably totally corrupt too. But anywhere the Spanish and the Catholic Church colonized, they left corruption. Okay, I'm talking about 400 years ago.
I hear what you're saying, Jimmy. Go ahead.
Okay, anywhere the Catholic Church and the Spanish and the Portuguese colonized right now, today, at this minute, it's dirty and corrupt. Okay, Venezuela. Hey, Colombia, want to buy some Coke? Bolivia, well, anyway, want to have a nice hat? So anyway, anywhere the Catholic Church and the Spanish colonized, no one wants to live there. All these Guatemalans and Hondurans, and they want to get away from that place. It's the Spanish Catholic Church colonized. Another comments about the Catholic Church. They put this high-ranking Catholic Church, put him in jail for 6 years. So where is Operon? Running around free, wearing a beard or not wearing a beard. Why didn't someone put him in jail? Okay, 200 complaints about sexual abuse in the Catholic Church on one. Okay, maybe figure only 100 of them. Maybe figure only 100 are honest. The other 200s, the other 100s, someone wants to jump on the bandwagon and get some money. This is, after all, Isla Ladrone, Island of Thieves. So, why is Aperon walking around free?
Jimmy, you've asked several rhetorical questions to make your point, and I think I kind of got an idea what your point is. I could answer.
My point is, I hate corruption.
Okay.
I hate dirt and filth. I'm sorry to bother you.
Well, you had something. I guess you got here just in time, Jimmy. You certainly had a load on your mind. So we encourage people to speak up and express themselves. I don't think you're going to win any prizes for political correctness with what you just said, but
Catholic Church joke.
Okay, all right.
Are you sure?
Yeah, go ahead.
What does the priest do when he's finished raping the 5-year-old girl?
This is a joke. I give up, Joey.
Oh, he turns her over and pretends she's a 5-year-old boy.
Boy, that's pretty bad, Jimmy.
Yeah, it's dirty, but so is what's going on in Gun.
Okay, I think we probably better say goodbye, Jimmy, before you're tempted to tell another, what you call a joke, okay? So thanks for calling in today, Jimmy. That was pretty raw. I would just mention, pick up a couple of points that Jimmy made. I suspect Jimmy's still listening. Whatever crimes Aperon committed could not be prosecuted criminally because we have a criminal statute of limitations that would have run out on those particular crimes. That law has been changed, and now there is no criminal statute of limitations on that kind of child sexual abuse. So locking up the barn door after the horses escaped, but at least that part got fixed. As far as the Catholic Church and the rest of the world, there are some pretty good, interesting places that were colonized by Spain. Costa Rica is a pretty nice place. If you've ever been to Costa Rica, a lot of Americans, expats, locate there because it's a nice place to live. And there are other places where the Spanish ensign has flown. And I could probably mount a pretty vigorous defense of the Catholic missionary zeal and going out to far-flung places as part of the Spanish colonial effort, but I would burn up about 3 different programs, and I'm just not quite up to it today. So I think what I'm going to do is, first thing I'm going to do is welcome people back, and then we'll give the real Joe Cruz a chance to show his intellectual mettle again. So let's see, we've got
Welcome back.
Lynn and Vince Bora Paulino are here, and Rico, hello Judge, Bob, and Real Joe, more of the old cult of personality. Tom Van Ingen, ready on time for Tall Tales Education. Albert Eliasson, some clapping hands. Mo Atgidun, what was the committee? The Tall Tales Clear, something. And Jose Martinez, drug dealers should be seen and not heard, talking about decorum in the Legislative Hall. And then I've got a post from Joe Cruz. Now, to clarify terms, that's not the real Joe Cruz. This is another Joe Cruz, right? Another Joe Cruz. It's not news when Zerzan bites Rigel on the leg, but it's news when Hemsing does. I guess another Joe Cruz has picked up on that anecdote that I like to tell about dogs biting and biting men and men biting dogs. Jose Martinez, First Amendment expressions. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. Good point, Jose. Lynn Vince Paulino, we probably shouldn't condone that immature professional behavior. Disrespectful. And then back to another Joe Cruz. The only problem with cannabis is when you run out. Okay, another Joe Cruz. And then Mo Atgidun continued from my last. He says, created that I was in charge of. He wants to know what committee I created that he was in charge of. I am working on building my staff. Am I director? If so, I want a deputy in case I have any paperwork. Well, by the powers invested in me, Mo Atgidun, you have the power to designate a deputy director who shall serve at your pleasure, just like we do in the government of Guam. Jose Martinez, again, says, I would submit that any pitch to sell illegal drugs on GovGuam property is wholly disruptive, no matter how polite one pitches their pot. Good call, Jose Martinez. Ismail Velez, it's okay to sell if you tax it, is his mindset. I think he's talking about Clinton Rigel, the sponsor of that bill. It's okay to sell drugs as long as you tax them. Joe Cruz, another Joe Cruz, in regard to lack of funds with the new administration, you must remember the lump sum payouts from the previous administration leave. That's true, but of course, another Joe Cruz, everybody knows that happens at the end of an administration, and certainly Lou Leon Guerrero knew that was going to happen, that this could not, or certainly should not have been a surprise to her, because it's a regular routine. Juanita Machi joined us today, and James Howard, times are changing. In the addition of live broadcasting social media from citizens is the new X factor. In the past, paper and radio was the pusher of information, at mass scale and by design. That reality is no longer relevant. Power to the people, says James Howard. And then Jose Cruz. Now our legislative branch is legislating history. Am I reading this right? Well, Kelly Marsh, parenthesis Titanos, bill doesn't legislative history. It sort of plays with history, I guess would be the way that I would phrase it. And then Jose Martinez asks a question, the Ministry of Propaganda? Well, I think as we move farther down the trail towards Chamorro self-determination, we're going to see a real ministry of propaganda amongst us. And then another Joe Cruz again, legalize tall tales and tax it. Wow, if tall tales were legal, would people enjoy it as much? Okay. And besides that, on tall tales, we just say no to taxes, right? And then we've got Elwin Champaco Quitano. The biggest problem with the Chamorro culture is that small groups of individuals are not doing enough to keep traditions in place. Nowadays, they make up things that have no evidence that it was ever worn by warriors or that lattes were initially used as foundation for homes. Both are false, but we've gone ahead and accepted fantasies as truth. This Chamorro month, let's evaluate what trends are moving along as truly Chamorro. Well, interesting point. You know, culture is a lot of things, one of which is the traditions of the people that practice a culture. Another is their history, and again, there are lots of elements to culture, but I know exactly what Elwin's saying. The Sinahi that so many people are sporting nowadays was a good way for jewelers to make a little extra money. And with respect to the latte stones, whether or not those stones were used as foundations for houses is an open question. My favorite is no ceremony is ever complete unless we have cultural dancers. And what we do is we take a lot of young girls and put them in grass skirts with coconut shell bras and have them go out and wiggle to the music and pretend that this sort of performance goes back to pre-contact Guam, that the pre-Hispanic Chamorros were doing this, and that we're just practicing something that's always been a part of the Chamorro culture. Well, all of those dances were invented in 1986 by a guy named Frank Rabone, who wrote a nice piece in the Sunday paper telling how he did it, where he got the various elements of what he did, why he did it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, a long history and tradition there. We've been doing these dances for about 30 years. I also heard a girl on the radio one day talking about a country and Western music song was playing. You know what I mean by that, Real Joe Cruz? One of those, hey, why don't somebody play another somebody done somebody wrong song? And the comment was, wow, that sounds just like Chamorro music, but with English words. Well, country and Western music is probably has deeper Chamorro roots than these cultural performances that we see from time to time, because the country and Western music goes back to right after World War II, and there were a couple 100,000 GIs on the island, many of them of the Southern persuasion, who had guitars and played their music, and Chamorros learned it, and as they would, they've added Chamorro words to those songs. So, you know, if you wanted to make an argument about Chamorro music, you could say some of those country and Western tunes are, quote, Chamorro. But we really get wrapped around our axle here with one person trying to be more Chamorro than the next. A very good example would be Kelly Marsh, parenthesis, Titano, trying to be more Chamorro than folks who were born here. And I suspect I know the motivation, but I'm going to leave it alone. Then we go on to James Howard. Wisdom moment happening now. And I think of James Howard and Jeff Pleadwell, who said truth. I think both those guys are commenting on what Jimmy said. Jimmy's rather unpolitical statements about the Catholic Church and Spanish colonization. And then we wind up, we've got Nate Horn's statute of limitations. Unfortunately, that's why Apron is free, and that's correct. And then James Howard comes back. That guy was awesome. And I think once again he's referring to our Jimmy. And of course, the real Joe Cruz and I have held that opinion of Jimmy for quite some time. Jimmy is awesome, right, real Joe Cruz?
Yes, Jimmy Ikutney.
And I know how much you look forward to Jimmy's calls.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, well, so much for that part of the program. And now I'm going to ask, before the show started, the real Joe Cruz was telling me that he thought that aphorisms added a lot to speech and that there were good ways of communicating important points. So I said, well, if that's the way you feel, Real Joe Cruz, let's talk a little bit about aphorisms after that big halftime show that we do every day. So, Real Joe Cruz, first of all, what is the meaning of the word aphorism?
Well, an aphorism is a pithy observation that contains a general truth, such as, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's an example of it's a pissy truth, did you say?
I said pithy.
Oh, okay.
I don't have a lisp, sir.
All right. Thank you, Real Joe Cruz. So that's what an aphorism is. Well, let's see if you could perhaps off the top of your head, if you could spout an aphorism or two.
Of course, sir.
Yeah. Let's start out talking about sportsmanship. You know a little bit about sportsmanship, right?
I do, sir.
What's a good aphorism that goes with sportsmanship?
Well, it's not whether you win or lose, but how you place the blame.
Okay.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, and then, I also want to talk a little bit. We talked a little earlier about, 40 years and time going by and age and everything. At my age, I'm really interested in the Spanish colonial endeavors because there was a gentleman named Ponce de Leon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, who discovered something called the Fountain of Youth.
Yes.
And I've been looking for that out in the boonies, but I've never found it. So what could you tell me about a fountain of youth?
Oh, I think we have enough youth. So what we really need is a fountain of smart.
A fountain of smart.
Yeah, nowadays, of course.
Yeah, okay. And, foolish people ordinarily don't accumulate a whole lot of money, but what happens when they do?
Well, a fool and his money can throw one heck of a party.
Yeah. Okay, now here's one that Jimmy might tell. You've heard the blonde jokes, right?
Oh, yes, sir.
Like, for example, a blonde walked up to the counter and said, I'd like a Big Mac and fries and a Coke. And the person behind the counter said, ma'am, this is the library. So the blonde says, oh, pardon me, I'd like a Big Mac and fries and a Coke. Pretty sexist, huh?
Yeah.
So, but they also say that blondes have more fun. What do you think about that?
I wonder if when blondes have more fun, do they know it?
All right, just one more here, Real Joe Cruz. It's always good to keep on trying. Never give up, right?
No, never give up.
You should never give up. So do you go along with that?
Well, if at first you don't succeed, skydiving is not for you.
Okay. Well, once again, Real Joe Cruz has shown his intellect. So we'll have more aphorisms from the Real Joe Cruz tomorrow. And now I'm going to go to Rory and Mike Phillips. And what was the title of that? Yeah, it's already time for the 7th inning stretch, right? Okay. And I didn't see Jack Haddock, so he suited up late yesterday. I don't see that he's in uniform today, so 7th inning stretch it is.
Lent-friendly burgers at Chili's. Indulge in a selection of our famous burgers with a black bean patty. Black bean patties combine beans with onions, parsley, bell peppers, and cilantro. Served with dill pickles and fries. More Lenten entrees include the spicy shrimp tacos, Cajun pasta with shrimp, or grilled ancho salmon. Best of all, each entree is just $15 and comes with a refreshing Coca-Cola, iced tea, or Heineken on draft. Our fresh house salad with an entree for just $15. Chili's 3 for Me Lent menu. Available for a limited time. Chili's. More life happens here.
Every once in a while, we need to get back to basics, the foundational ideas that bring success and happiness at work and in life. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we're going to hit on some fundamentals we need to be reminded of.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
I see some signs. People are holding signs up in the center field bleachers at Wrigley Field. Let's see if, yeah, I can read one of the signs. We want Jack. Yeah, So Jack Haddock, your fans are wondering why you didn't suit up today. So maybe tomorrow you can suit up if you can get away from the Chamorro Land Trust Commission for a little while and suit up with the Tall Tales Tigers. Okay, I'm going on here. Rory Respicio, as the saying goes, hit the ground running as the new director of commercial port. And his first board meeting, he announced that several things. He announced that he was going to appoint a task force to, I guess, relitigate the case of the Commercial Port 7 in order to provide justice to the Commercial Port 7. He announced that he was going to get rid of Mike Phillips as the attorney for the Commercial Port, and that held him for a little while. Then the next thing that Rory did to attract attention to himself was he took it upon himself to contact Champ Calvo to start a mediation of what we call the YTK dispute. And you'll remember that the YTK matter is a contractual dispute between a company called YTK that went to arbitration and resulted in an arbitration award of $15 million plus interest. And Rory contacted Champ Calvo, who is the principal of YTK, about mediation. And when Rory's board of directors found out about that, they weren't really very happy. They said, you know, if you got to do something like that, you got to do it with board approval. And Rory said, oh, I didn't really do much of anything. I just wanted to talk to Champ and see if they'd be interested in mediating. Well, some rather embarrassing emails turned up later on that showed that they'd gone pretty far down the road towards at least setting up the mechanics of a mediation. It's caused one of the board members to ask for Rory's resignation as the director of the commercial port. So those things kind of keep bubbling up from time to time. Once again made the news yesterday or last night on PNC when PSC had a story about Lou and Josh's big adventure at the commercial port, where they met with the general manager, Rory Respicio, on Wednesday during a tour of the port facilities to take a closer look at the operations that manage 90% of our island's imports. After the tour, reporters got a chance to inquire about some contentious issues concerning the port, including the $15 million arbitration award to YTK Corporation, which the court continues to dispute. The YTK is already going through the court process, Respicio said. My position on that is let it go through. Now, that's his new position. His first position was we really ought to think about mediating this because once the Supreme Court has decided, if they've decided against us, our bargaining position is zilch. Before the court decides, we at least have a bargaining position. So that was Rory's first position. Now Rory says the YTK is already going through the court process. My position on that is let it go through. In February, Respicio stirred controversy when he made a move to negotiate YTK without a sanction from the Port Authority of Guam Board. The case stemmed from a 45-year lease signed by the Port Authority in 2001 with YTK, which planned to develop a multi-million-dollar fisheries facility on port-owned Hotel Wharf. In 2008, the Port Authority terminated the lease, which the legislature never acted on. YTK subsequently sued the port for breach of contract, and despite board members' resentment of Respicio's action, board chairman, okay, so then after Respicio approached Champ about mediation, story goes on, despite board members' resentment towards Respicio's action, board chairman Francisco Santos expressed confidence in the general manager's ability to lead. I have full confidence in Rory, he said. When asked if she shared Santos' confidence in Respicio, Governor Leon Guerrero replied, absolutely. Okay, then the Port 7. On the issue of the Port 7 case, in which 7 employees were fired from the Port Authority in 2012 for providing illegal benefits and falsifying documents, here's what Leon Guerrero had to say. I am very confident that the general manager and the board will follow the orders of the court. I feel it will be sent through a very objective, fair, very objective, fair, and of course judicial process. Now, that's what the governor said on Wednesday when Rory first met with the board of directors. He had a better idea. He was going to appoint the port's deputy director to provide a task force to look not only at the cases of the 7, but of all adverse action cases. And he had some pretty interesting language saying that, you know, those were political firings and that they weren't fair, and that he was going to get it straightened out. That's pretty much what he said. So, you know, when I found out about that, I've been following these cases all the way along. They go from the director of the port to the Civil Service Commission to the Superior Court to the Supreme Court, and maybe back down. So we've got several items or several elements in the process. We have the director, the Civil Service Commission, the Superior Court, and then the Supreme Court. And ordinarily, we think that the Supreme Court has the last word on any legal case. But apparently at the at the commercial port, there's something else, and that would be not the Supreme Court, but the Supremist Court. And you're going to ask, well, who is the Supremist Court? And that would be Rory Respicio, who on his first day with the board indicated a willingness to go in and cast aside all the trappings of judicial independence and take the matter unto himself. Well, apparently the governor doesn't see it that way. The governor says, I'm very confident that the general manager and the board will follow the orders of the court. I feel it will be sent through a very objective, fair, and of course, judicial process. Sorry, Rory, the governor doesn't agree with you. But there's still hope, because this is what the lieutenant governor said. It really is about fairness and making sure that people have been treated fairly. And I think that the port has the process in which they are looking at this. Fresh eyes are following the law and making sure fairness is present with the employees. So that the way I read it, that directly contradicts what the governor said. So do we have Jimmy back on the line, Real Joe Cruz? Okay, well, in order to save Jimmy a little money, I'm going to come back to Rory here in a second. Hey, Jimmy, what else you got to tell me?
Well, you remember the famous Englishman?
You got your radio on. Jimmy, turn off your... Jimmy, turn off your radio.
Well...
That's better. Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy. The famous Englishman. Go ahead.
He said the law is an ass. Maybe it was Thomas Pitt, or I don't know who it was.
Yeah, it was Mr. Dooley in a comic strip. Yeah, the law is an ass.
Yeah, what did Pogo say?
Pogo said, we have met the enemy and they are us.
Okay.
So, go ahead, Jimmy.
Just my question.
Yeah.
How do you get rid of the corruption?
How do you get rid of the corruption? Is that your question?
First, you have to admit the corruption exists.
Okay.
Second, you have to admit corruption is bad.
All right.
Third, I don't know.
Well, do you want my analysis, Jimmy?
Yes, that's why I'm...
Oh, okay, I think the only way to root out corruption is with a aggressive free press. And of course, that's taken on a new meaning as per the caller name.
Yeah, I cannot call K57 because of Filipino Phil and Filipino Fall. I cannot call. And when I call K57, they threaten me that I'm going to be arrested.
They say you're going to be arrested?
Yes.
Any particular reason? Or?
It's spelled F-A-C-T.
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Jimmy?
I just spelled fact, F-A-C-T.
Ah, okay, Jimmy, good. Well, you don't have any...
When I call K57, someone recognizes my voice and then threatens me that if I call K57 again, they're going to arrest me. For what?
I suspect that they're going to arrest you just for being Jimmy.
Well, I've been that all my life. Can't be anything else.
Yeah, I don't think being Jimmy should be a crime, Jimmy.
Well, tell Filipino Paul and Filipino Phil at K57 that.
Well, okay, that's another radio station. I don't have anything to do with how they outrun their shop, but as far as you know, you can call Tall Tales and you can express your opinion rather freely, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, but I won't drink the Kool-Aid. I like that guy. He's good.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling back, Jimmy.
Anyway, we were speaking about corruption.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to basics. Is corruption good or is corruption bad?
Okay, corruption's bad.
So, second question. How do you eradicate corruption?
You expose it. And that's what I was saying about... That's what I was saying about a free press, even taking into consideration what... Jimmy, let me finish, okay? Even taking into consideration what James Howard said, that the press isn't what it used to be, the only way to deal with corruption is to expose it. And that's the job of newspapers, TV stations, talk show hosts, etc. And if it's exposed, then it can be dealt with. Otherwise, nobody knows what's going on.
Bless your soul. And God help you, old man.
Okay, Jimmy. Thank you very much. I need all the help I can get. I got to get back here to talking about corruption.
God sees and God knows.
I got to get back to the commercial port here, Jimmy, so thanks for calling back. Okay, yeah, so corruption. My thoughts are that what we really need to do, and the whole thing with the Catholic Church is a primary example. I think a lot of people knew what was going on with the Catholic Church. They didn't want to expose it. They weren't there. There was a lack of courage to expose it. Once it was exposed, it was dealt with, and I think that's the case with a lot of other things. Now, not that they're cut from the same cloth, but I'm going to go back here to the commercial port 7. Rory, kind of on his first day with the board, cast aside this idea that the Governor Leon Guerrero talked in terms of, who was very confident that that the matter would be dealt with in a very fair and judicial process. Rory wanted to cast the fair judicial process aside and appoint his own group to deal with it. And I coined a term there. So we have a Supreme Court that usually has the last word, but in this case it appears that we have a supremist court, the most supreme of all, and Mr. Justice Respicio is in charge of that court. Then going on from there, Lulian Guerrero said that she is confident that the general manager and the board will follow the direction of the courts. But the lieutenant governor said something I read is totally different. It's really about fairness and making sure that people have been treated fairly. And I think the port has the process in which they are taking a look at this. That's Rory's committee. So apparently the lieutenant governor is not satisfied in letting the matter go through the judicial process, because he said fresh eyes are following the law and making sure fairness is present with the employees. I think that will probably be clear in what the outcome will be in each individual case. So I don't take a whole lot of comfort from reading this. We have a system that involves a civil service commission, a trial court, and an appellate court. It's called the rule of law. And I am not really very enthusiastic about Rory appointing his own task force to go in and deal with this matter. Former executive manager of the port, Joanne Brown, said it's an obvious political payoff. Well, I don't know if it is or it isn't, but certainly one can make that argument when on his first day, Rory comes in and says, we got to take a look at the port 7, because I don't think it was fair. I don't think it was done right. How would he even know that unless those 7 people had been whispering in his ear? So, so much for that one. Let's see, we've got about 10 more minutes, right, Real Joe Cruz? Yeah. And we're coming right up on the home stretch. So I'm going to save the AFL-CIO versus AOC until tomorrow.
Shrimp and guacamole for Lent at Subway. The all-new shrimp and guacamole combines generous portions of whole shrimp and a spread of guacamole served on freshly baked bread, paired with vegetables cut fresh daily in restaurants and sauces that are sure to excite your taste buds. Hurry in, it's only available for a limited time. Other fresh Lenten flavors include the classic tuna or the mouth-watering greatness of our seafood sensation. Don't forget the Veggie Max, a delicious and tasty vegetarian patty. Visit any of our convenient locations today. At Subway, you make it what you want.
Get to Cars Plus in Mighty now for our spring sales event, like a new Jeep Compass Sport, $166 per paycheck, or a new Chrysler Pacifica LX, $220 per paycheck, or save $8,500 on a new Ram 1500. How about a new Jeep Wrangler Sport, only $274 per paycheck? Low 1.99% financing is available on approved credit. Save thousands during our spring sales event going on now at Cars Plus in Mighty. Cars Plus, driven by you.
So here we are heading down the home stretch, and I notice that Jack Haddock finally suited up and trotted out onto the ball field. Probably in response to that tremendous demonstration out in the center field bleachers at Wrigley Field. And question si Jack na eleknya si Jack Guam ko todo maulik pat todo mafnud. Sa nila ko ekwa tutongo no para Guam lo guaho nai sempre todo maulik nunca nai todo mafnud. Jack lo malay question mo. Okay, so we're going to the features here, and I've got a new feature that I'm still working here on the Earth is not a fragile planet, kind of debunking some of the myth and about global warming. And I've got a new feature. If you're watching, this is the feature that I'm going to go to next. How about that one? Pretty graphic, huh? The rebirth of socialism. So I'm going to spend the last 10 minutes of the program talking about the rebirth of socialism in our country and on our island. Okay, so I've got this item that from Walter Williams that deals with global warming hysteria, as you were. This is from the Rockwell website. Our planet is not fragile. And yesterday I read some figures about three volcanic eruptions, 1883, 1912, and 1947, spewed more carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere than all of mankind's activities during our entire history. And I've got more of the same. But before I go into that, our Carl sent me a very interesting graphic representation that looks like this, talking about, it's a tide gauge. And, you know, the lefties are telling us that one of these days Nebraska is going to be on a beach because the ocean is rising so much, it's going to inundate everything, and the ocean is rising much faster than it ever did before. Well, our Carl sent me this graph of the Manhattan tide gauge, and it shows that since the time of Abraham Lincoln up until now, the height of the tides at New York Harbor have indeed been increasing. But it's not the fact that the higher water level that's so astounding. What's astounding is the rate, and the rate is that the tides have been rising about 2.8 milliliters, as you were millimeters, every year. So the increase in the height of the tides has been increasing since 1860, but at about the same rate. So how much carbon were we putting into the atmosphere during the Civil War or at 1900, et cetera? So I think you draw this conclusion from this graph, that the oceans, at least in New York, have been rising for quite some time. And the person that put together the graph said, pointed out that the same is not true on the West Coast. The same is not true at the Golden Gate Bridge. And the reason is that it's not that the water level is, the height of the water level is increasing, but that the Earth is sinking. And it's sinking a little faster on the East Coast than it is on the West Coast. So all of these scare tactics about, oh, the ocean is rising so fast and everybody better take his car to the junkyard and buy a Prius because we're ruining our planet. Left-wing propaganda. And then I'm going to go on again with this article about our planet is not fragile. What about the impact of earthquakes on our fragile Earth? Chile's 1960 Valdivia earthquake was 9.5 on the Richter scale. It created a force equivalent to 1,000 atomic bombs going off at the same time. The deadly 1556 earthquake in China's Shaanxi province devastated an area of 520 miles. Our so-called fragile Earth faces outer space terror. 2 billion years ago, an asteroid hit Earth, creating the Van der Voort crater in South Africa, which has a diameter of 190 miles. In Ontario, there's the Sudbury Basin, resulting from a meteor strike almost 2 billion years ago. At 39 miles long, 19 miles wide, and 9 miles deep, it's the second largest impact structure on Earth. Somehow the Earth survived these things. Virginia's Chesapeake Bay crater is a bit smaller, about 53 miles wide. Then there's the famous but puny meteor crater in Arizona, which is not even a mile wide. My question is, this is from Walter Williams, my question is, which of these powers of nature could be duplicated by mankind? For example, could mankind even come close to duplicating the polluting effects of the 1815 Tambora volcanic eruption? It's the height of arrogance to think that mankind can make significant parametric changes in Earth or can even match nature's destructive forces. Our planet is not fragile. Occasionally, environmentalists spill the beans and reveal their true identity. Barry Commoner said, capitalism is the Earth's #1 enemy. Amherst College professor Leo Mark said, on ecological grounds, the case for world government is beyond argument. I'm going to touch on these matters again at the end of the program tomorrow.